Hey, it's Adam. So last week I showed all of the plants that I'm currently growing in LECA, and this week I'm going to talk about how I've been growing plants in LECA as a beginner, just like my experience and like what I've been like how I've been preparing it and how I've been taking care of the LECA plants. So this isn't necessarily like a how-to video for beginners. This is more like a beginner giving their experience with trying a new substrate. So as most of you know, I have been growing houseplants since I was like 10, and I just like all those years I stuck to like the traditional method of growing in soil. I was just too confused by I didn't understand how the LECA balls would actually work, and the nutrients and all that stuff. It still confuses me. I've never even used LECA nutrients yet. I was too scared to jump in and like commit to LECA. I was the same with grow lights. Like that grow light is my first and only grow light, and I just got that like literally a few months ago. I just had to do it. Like it was something that I would never research enough of. I just needed to actually get experience and like go do it. If something's working for me, I'm not really going to I'm not one that would go out of my way if something's already working for me. Soil was working fine for me and I had bright windows, so I just never felt a need to try grow lights out. So yeah, I just always I felt like I needed to research the hell out of it before I like tried it out on my plants. My friend gave me, well, this is not the same bag, but my friend gave me a bag of LECA from IKEA, and that finally gave me the opportunity to just like go for it. I tried it and I was noticing some like good positive changes in my plants. So I got another bag. This is the LECA. I just get it from IKEA. You can probably find it on Amazon, but I was just at IKEA, so I picked up another bag. But yeah, sometimes you just need to like stop like thinking so deep and just like go for it and like try it out and get your experience with the new whatever it is. After that, I just converted a few more plants and they've been doing pretty well ever since. If you want to see all the plants that I have in LECA before watching how I like prepare and take care of it, I will link it like right there or there. But yeah, that video I just went through all the plants that I have in LECA and like what they've done in LECA since I put them in. But now I'm just gonna get right into how I prepare for it and take care of it. Usually I start by measuring out my LECA, but I don't know what the root system looks like on the Monstera Peru yet. So I think what I'm going to do is uproot the Monstera Peru first and rinse off the roots so I can see what it looks like. Some people actually, what they do is they just do that first. Actually, maybe that is a better thing to do first. Prepare the plant that you have that you want to move to LECA first. So what that other person does, I forget where I saw it, but they rinse off the soil and then they like keep the plant in water for a few days, and then it kind of just like gets the roots used to water, and then later on they measure the LECA and then convert the LECA. I'm not going to wait a few days. I'm just going to do everything now. And another thing is people soak their LECA, but I'm just going to rinse it and pop the plant in it. It works out for me. So I know this is not the most ideal setup, but I don't really know where else to unpot my plant. I guess I'm going to do it on the floor. What I do is I lay out grocery bags, and then that way I could just like take the soil and just like throw everything out. I'm also going to take all my rings off because we're dealing with soil here. So this is the Monstera Peru. I'm just going to pop it out. I really don't know what to expect. Okay. Yeah, I can already tell there's not many roots. Yeah, so that pretty much just like popped out easily. This plant has been repotted in that pot for like over half a year, so by now I would expect it to have rooted out and like filled the pot, but sometimes plants just struggle in soil and you need to move them to a new type of media. I can tell that this root is rotten because when I lightly pull on it, it just slides off. So I guess it was rotting as well. The main thing you want to do when you're transferring a plant from soil to LECA is get off as much of the old substrate as possible, because if there's little bits of soil, you're moving it to like a semi-hydro setup, and so that little piece of soil or little piece of bark will probably end up rotting or growing fungus, so you want to make sure you get off as much as possible. So it looked like this root had a whole bunch of roots that just slid off because they were rotten, and there's still some. Like a healthy root, like for example this one, I'm pulling on it and nothing's really sliding off. But for this root, when I was pulling on it, it just slid off. It's very similar to orchids, like this stringy part is like the actual root, and then this is just like the coating of the root. This part seems to not be sliding off, so I'm going to leave that, and then this part already slid off. So what I could do is just chop it to the stringy part, or there, I just broke it off. And then over here, we're gonna do a little bit of testing all along the root. So I can already tell that it's squishy down here, and so if I pull on it, yeah, that just slid off. But when I pull here, nothing is sliding off, and it is, I can tell that it's also like filled with, like it's fleshy, so it's still alive. Okay, now I'm noticing that this is actually an active growing root, so this is good. And there's also another active growing root right here. So this was easy because there is not much of a root system, but when you're dealing with a plant that has a lot of roots, it could be tricky to get off all the soil. But still at this stage, you want to make sure you're rinsing it. What I like to do is take an old toothbrush and I really just like brush off as much soil as possible. So now we're in the bathroom and I'm going to rinse off the soil. I forgot to get the brush. I was gonna brush off the soil that's on the roots. Also, you want to get like there's some debris here just from like when the stem was growing out. You want to get all that like debris off because things like that will rot in LECA. Alright, so now I got an old toothbrush, and what I'm going to do is just like very gently scrub the roots, and then I can get like really tiny pieces of dirt off just so that there's like as minimal dirt in the LECA pot as possible. You don't want to like scratch the root so much that like it breaks or snaps. You just want to like really lightly go over it, and then also get any crevices. Okay, so I did try my best, and there's still like some soil, but you can't get everything, so I would say that this is pretty good, and now I can just find a pot that will fit this. Alright, so I found a small pot that will definitely fit this small root system. I thought I was going to need a bigger pot, but I really did not realize how little roots were in that pot. So, yep, should do well in this pot. So this is the bag of LECA, and usually you're going to use like a lot more. But I'm just potting in such a small pot, so I'm just gonna like scoop it. If you're working with a lot of LECA, I would wear a mask because it's very dusty and you do not want to breathe it in. And another thing is when you're rinsing it, there's a lot of grains that will clog your sink, so I definitely do not recommend doing it in the sink. I'm just doing a really small amount, so I'm just gonna rinse it, and IKEA LECA is pretty clean. Like I noticed that there's not as much dust as other LECAs, but a good option to rinse your LECA if you're doing a lot and it's very dusty is to just go outside and use the hose. Another thing is right now we don't have a hose, like the hoses, it's winter right now, so the hose is not like, it's frozen. So yeah, I'm just gonna rinse it, and as you can see, it's running pretty clear already. You can hear it. the microphones here. But it's very dehydrated and you need to like soak it. For me, I just like plant straight in LECA and I don't soak it, and it's been working out fine for me. So as long as you rinse it, you'll notice that the water's not running clear, and then when it runs clear, it's ready. But for me, this one runs clear almost instantly. I'm just gonna rinse it a bit more. Yeah, it's pretty much okay. It's pretty much already ready, so it would be awesome to let it soak, but what I do is I just plant it and then I put it in its reservoir anyway, and then the water, it'll eventually soak up and rehydrate on its own. I'm going to use an outer pot for this. This should probably fit pretty well. So what I do is after I'm done rinsing, and if you're gonna soak it after that, I dump it in the outer pot that you chose. And then I put a little bit back in. Then I take my plant and I position it in the pot how I want it to sit. And I also like to make sure the roots are like against the pot, and then that way you can see them. So for demonstration purposes, I'll put the root right against the pot like that. And then you're able to clearly see it as it grows. Yeah, this is how I want it to stay in the pot, so fill it up. And then you want to make sure you're getting any air pockets out, so I just like squeeze the pot, and then you can also use something to push the rest of the balls down if you see that there's like a spot. So I positioned it how I want it to sit in the pot, and you can clearly see like the root, so I'll be able to see the progress. So now what I do is I just pop it into the outer container, and then I need to fill it with some water. And that is how easy it is to convert a plant to LECA, pretty much. So from here on, I'm just going to make sure that the reservoir does not go down. So what LECA is, I don't know if I explained, but it's like, I think it's like clay that they puff up. It's like terracotta that they like puff up. And then it makes it absorbent. So what it can do is like, when you leave a water reservoir, it can like bring the water up to like the roots. That's why you don't have to fill it all the way to the top. You can just fill it like 1/3 the pot. That's pretty much what I use. But if you let the reservoir dry out, then the roots will dry out, and then you'll get root rot because now the root dies because it's like a desert, and then all of a sudden you fill it back with water. So I would not suggest letting your LECA plants dry out. But the good news is that the reservoir pretty much stays for a long time, so you have to like, it's way more maintenance than soil plants. Like I barely water my LECA plants, probably I only check on them like once or twice a month. So yeah, the combination of like water being brought up to the plant and then the aeration that the LECA provides to the roots, it gets such a good combination of like air and water that the plant just like thrives in it. And another thing about LECA is that it's like reusable, so if you like a plant just ends up dying and you want to reuse the LECA, you can just boil it and it kills the germs. People also boil it for the first time, but I don't even do that. Honestly, if this was to die and I wanted to reuse LECA, I don't think I would boil it anyway. I would just like reuse it. So another thing is that there's so much to like learn about LECA and so many different ways to grow in it. What people do is they leave it in a cache pot and an inner pot so that they can flush the pot of like salts that build up. But I haven't really got to that stage yet. Another way that people grow is just like growing it in a container like this. It has no holes, and you just fill up the water up. It's kind of high. It's supposed to be 1/3, but yeah, I filled it too much. But whatever, you just like leave it like this and there's no way to flush it out. It's been working fine for me so far. I just happen to have a lot of little pots and like a lot of cache pots, so I just do it this way, but they pretty much are in the same, like they each get a little reservoir, and then when it starts drying up, I refill it. But yeah, LECA does not have any nutrients to it, so if you're gonna keep your plant here long term and it's growing well, you need to give it some sort of like nutrients. I have not gotten to that stage yet. But what I do for the ones that are doing well, like my Scindapsus Moonlight, I just like take all-purpose houseplant fertilizer, and it's like very, very, very diluted. I'll like drop a few drops in and just mix it, and I hope that it does stuff. One day I will master the nutrients and I will get a hang of that. But yeah, from here on, it's literally just making sure the reservoir stays at 1/3 the pot. And checking on the roots to see if they're growing. I would say it's a very like easy and low maintenance way to grow your plants, and it just helps if you have something struggling to try something new. I can't wait to update on this Monstera Peru now that it's in LECA. I've been wanting to do it for a while. I knew it was struggling in soil. So yeah, I'd say that this is a very basic tutorial on how I convert my plants to LECA, but there is a lot more to know, like just like how it works and just like how the nutrients work and stuff like that. But once you get the hang of like what it takes to convert a plant to LECA and like what it takes to upkeep it, which is literally for me just making sure the reservoir stays at 1/3. It's perfect if you like have lots of commitments in life like school, work, etc. Alright, so I hope it was cool seeing how I approached LECA as a beginner. I can't wait to get more updates in the future and dive deeper into LECA, but for now that's all I have. I hope you enjoyed this video and thanks for tuning in.